Hey guys, it's Beth, and today I'm back with a quick project share of a few of the items I've made using Songbird by DCWV, which is my latest Kilopad project. If you watched my preview video for this Kilopad project, you remember seeing like this scene paper that I said I was going to try and use as one of my scrapbook pages, my 12 by 12 pages, and so that's what I did. And there was also this cut apart that had the sun and the clouds, and it says having a good time. And so I figured that that would be a good like title element or sentiment for my page. So I found a couple pictures of my daughter when she was 18 months old. It was in June of that year, and it was we had beautiful weather all month, so we went to the park a lot. So I decided to incorporate that into the page, you know, make this kind of like a park scene. And so I put this cut apart up here at the top, just so it's like the sun kind of shining down on the park. And then it had these little clouds in it, and there was also a page in the pad that had these blue clouds. And so I cut a grouping of them out and just layered them behind the cut apart. So they're not meant to stand out, they're just meant to add a little bit of dimension to the page. And then the page itself, it had the tree, the grass, and then there was a bird printed here and a bird printed here. Well, I had to sacrifice this little bird down here because I needed room to put my pictures. And then I ended up covering up this bird with I just fussy cut a bird out of one of the pattern papers. And this little area up here on the tree where it's like, you know, shows you the individual leaves, like a little cutout where you're looking into the center of the tree, drove me crazy. And so I had to fill it, almost like it needed to frame something. So I fussy cut out two little birds from one of the pattern papers, and I put them in there like they were sitting in a nest, you know, two baby birds chirping at each other. And in this one that I did, I just did a single bird. But after I did these birds, and then I also fussy cut a butterfly out. After I did those, like the little bird that was here was tinier than the butterfly, and you know, really tiny compared to these birds up here. So I felt the scale was way off. Now I know the sun up here is off scale too, but for some reason that little bird bothered me. So I just fussy cut out another bird and layered it on there. And then I also fussy cut out this little flower here from a scrap of pattern paper along with some leaves. And on both of these, like I have, you know, the butterflies and the flower and the bird. So the only non-paper embellishment that is on either of these pages are buttons. And down here at the bottom, there was actually printed a red, a light blue, and then like a light yellow-orange button. And I happen to have those colors in my stash, so I just covered those, what was printed on there, with the actual buttons. Again, just to give it a little bit more embellishment. And then on my daughter's page here, I also had one red butterfly button in my stash, and so I used it up. Now, for any of you who are new to my videos and you're wondering why I have multiples of the same scrapbook layout, I have two daughters, and we all have our own scrapbook albums, and so I like to make layouts, especially if it's pictures that, you know, involve us all. I make a layout for each of our albums. I know I could make one set of layouts, scan it, and print it on a wide format printer, but I like physically making them with my hands, and that way I change up the journaling sometimes for each of the layouts depending on whose album it's going into, and so I have the freedom to do that. And also by making 3 sets, I actually use up more of my stash, which I have plenty to go around. So that's kind of why I do it that way. And really it doesn't take that much longer to make 2 or 3 of the same layout, because once I get the layout figured out, I make them all the same, so the construction time isn't that much longer. Once you figure out one, it all goes pretty quick. So, backstory, that's why I always have multiples of the same scrapbook layout. So that was one set of layouts, and then I did a second one, and it's just on a solid color off-white piece of cardstock. But I wanted to use up this little cut apart up here that says Best of Friends with the 2 little birds. And when my daughters were younger, I mean, they still get along really well at age 6 and 8, But when they were younger, their dynamic was just amazing. My oldest, who was 2 when my youngest was born, just was so in love with the baby. I mean, obviously, she's like a real life baby doll that she could play with. She was such a good mama's helper. I mean, she still tries to be, but... And then my youngest, Avery, was just so in love with Ellie, her older sister. Just like everything Ellie did, Avery was just in awe. Ellie had a calming effect on Avery, almost a better calming effect sometimes than I did, because Avery could be totally fussy about something, and then Ellie would just stick her face in Avery's face, and Avery would just start to giggle, you know. So it was amazing. Like I said, they still get along really well, and when they are getting along, it is, you know, beautiful and amazing too, but this dynamic was so beautiful at the time. I've already documented kind of their relationship in other layouts, so I didn't do a whole lot of journaling about it on here. So that's why I used the best of friends as my title, and I did add the month and the year of when it was, and then I wanted to label who was in the pictures so that, you know, somewhere down the line somebody would know that it was Ellie and Avery. But instead of labeling the actual pictures, I just labeled the birds up here. And so the bigger bird is Ellie, and then the baby bird is Avery for the baby. And then I also added this Marvelous was actually part of another cut apart, and it had like a tree on the other side, and it was 5 by 5-ish inches, and I knew I wouldn't use that on one of my normal size greeting cards, and so I just cut the tree out and I saved it for a card later. But I used the word marvelous and then wrote together underneath of it, you know, so they are marvelous together. So between what I labeled up here and my marvelous together, that's the extent of the journaling that I did on this one. And then as far as the layout goes, I actually went to Pinterest and I found this layout by Scrapbook Challenges. Like there's no number, but I have a Pinterest board under my Bourbon Creek Pinterest account, and it's Scrapbook Sketches. And then within that board, I have different folders for the number of pictures that are included in each sketch. So that's kind of like a quick reference for me, that when I'm trying to do a quick layout, you know, in a project like this, I know how many pictures I have, and I can go to that particular folder within the board and, you know, just see those particular layouts. And so I liked this sketch because of the different patterned strips it used. It had 3 different patterned strips in it. And so that's what I followed with, you know, these here. So I have like this orange, this floral, and then like a solid green pattern here. So I just layered those up, and then I backed my pictures on just a solid kind of like yellowish color piece of cardstock just to help them, you know, stand out amidst the other patterns that were going on. And as far as embellishments, I didn't add much since some of the paper already had a lot going on, but I have this flower here that I fussy cut out of a scrap of this pattern paper. And then there's this windmill fan blade-ish type flower that I just did used a circle punch to cut out and have it on the other layouts. And then this little yellow flower is actually vinyl. I was cutting a project for our craft fair last week out of this yellow vinyl and had that little part that I wasn't going to use for anything, and rather than, you know, throw it away or throw it in my little scrap stash, I decided to use it up, and because I knew the color matched some of the colors that were in this pad, so I just cut some flowers out of it and ended up using them on this layout the other day. So I just cut a little circle punch out of some scraps of this orange paper as my flower center. And the only other thing I added was this little fishtail up here. And that was because, you know, the white space, if you've watched my videos, you know white space drives me crazy. It just seemed out of balance up here. And I also wanted to tie in the green to make it look like more, it was meant to be part of the page. And so I did the, you know, the whole visual triangle with the green elements. Kind of, I guess you would include that one too, but anyway, that's my reasoning on that. And so I have 3 of those, 1 for each of us. And then I did a few Post-it pads And I've already sold one, but I did these for our craft show last week, and they're like real quick and easy ones. Like this is just a 3 1/4 by 7-inch piece of cardstock, or of the patterned paper, which is like almost cardstock weight, so it can kind of stand alone as the pad cover. But I just used a circle punch to punch out one of the birds, and then used a scallop circle to punch out like a little scallop circle to mat the bird on. So like I said, quick and easy. It's one of the 3x3 post-it pads. I already sold one. And then I did this cute little guy using one of the little mini post-it pads. And I only had like one or two packs of these in my stash, so I only made one with this paper. But I don't know why, I had never made these before. And then I saw video on YouTube, and she is inspired by Graham, and I think Karen McNall is her name, but she made a bunch of these, and I said, oh, I have those. I don't know why I never remember to make little decorative versions of that. So I will link her video below where she makes those, and she gives you the full tutorial. But to keep it simple, I just use kind of a more simple pattern for the background for the actual notepad cover, and then I used a Stampin' Up! Label punch to get this blue label that is the background for my bird that I fussy cut out of the paper, and then it's just closed with a little strip of Velcro. So that was that. So far I've gotten a few post-it notepads. I got my scrapbook pages, and then I have finished my little note card set card holder, I guess, for lack of a better word. So next week I will have a little project share tutorial on that for you guys. And then probably after that it's just cards. It'll just be down to the card making. So please be sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more ideas on how to use up your stash of paper. Thanks for your time today, guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.